Well, Washington has struggled against the bottom two teams in the Pac-12 in the last couple of weeks. What's going on with the Huskies? Are they still the best team in the Pac-12? There might be a simple explanation.
You are Locked On Pac-12, your daily podcast on the Pac-12 Conference. It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On Pac-12. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with our media rights and soon to be mostly team-free, but until then, beloved and loaded Conference of Champions. Like, comment, and subscribe, please and thank you, wherever you listen to or watch this show, which today is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app. Create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We're talking Washington, Pac-12 power rankings, quarterback rankings, all coming up on a loaded show with my guy, Roman Tomashoff, at rtomashoff34 on Twitter, host of Locked On Huskies. Roman, what's going on with Washington right now? They keep letting me down in the Pac-12 prime picks. You know, I keep picking up, by the way, I'm going to triple down on them this week and pick them to beat USC by more than 3. But, like, what exactly have you seen? What have you seen in the last couple of weeks? What's going on with the Dogs?
So first of all, I assumed you invited me on here just to power rank the Pac-12, just so one particular fan base would get mad at us, which is still just my favorite thing in the world. But Spencer, as you said in the opener, there might be a pretty simple explanation for what's going on. As we record this on Monday night, I just got back from a press conference from Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb, and William Inge, where Ryan Grubb, one of the first things he talked about was the fact that this is, and I'm quoting him here, the best he's seen Michael Penix look in about 10 days or so, because Michael Penix and about half of the team have been really sick with the flu. So that's something where it's something to consider just kind of as we go forward here, where is that an excuse? No, not necessarily. But is it also maybe an explanation for why some of the things have looked the way they have? I personally think so, because one of the things that we also need to consider here is not just the flu has been really just keeping the Huskies down. They've been really, really just hit with the injury bug incredibly hard this season. They just got right guard Julius Buelow back against Stanford after he hasn't played since the Michigan State game. So he's been out for a long time. Washington had 2 healthy safeties really against Stanford, which was not great on the back end of the defense with Dom Hampton, Mikael Steen, Asa Turner also, and Camphor McLaughlin are both injured, and neither of them were able to play. And then Vince Nunley, there's a separate issue that we're not really aware of. All Kalen DeBoer said is it's not injury related. And so he's been away from the team as well. So there have been a lot of things that have been going on, but really the biggest thing is the flu really did seem to hit this team pretty hard from my understanding, from a lot of things that I've been told from people around the program.
So as you look at the Pac-12, and I think that as you and I have been saying and others for the last few weeks, it's Oregon and Washington, and everyone, is trying to chase after them and get to Las Vegas. Those teams control their path to the Pac-12 championship game. It sounds like you are not concerned about Washington, having peaked against Oregon and starting to, show some cracks or anything like that. I don't know if they finish the regular season undefeated. I think between USC and Oregon State, they probably lose one of those games, whether the flu or COVID or whatever is running rampant in the locker room or not. But that team that everyone had as, a college football playoff contender, and they, will be for sure, and are still undefeated. You're not worried about that team, not still being in that locker room. Whereas like a Washington State, it's clear that 4-0 football team just is not there, unfortunately, right now for the Cougs.
No, so there are things that I'm definitely concerned about more defensively than on the other side of the ball. I think that there's still things that can be worked out as there can be with every team, right? But the one thing that kind of gives me solace through all of this is the big one is Kalen DeBoer. Having Kalen DeBoer on your football team, just leading your football team, is always going to just, in my opinion, not necessarily make up for things, but just kind of will take you that extra mile, because I think that he's one of the best coaches in the Pac-12, and he's proven that. And one of the most, Spencer, do you want a fun stat I can hit you with here?
I love fun stats. I'm a play-by-play guy, Roman. I live for fun stats. Hit me with it.
Good. So, Kalen DeBoer's record as a head coach throughout his entire coaching career in the month of November.
I know this one.
In the month of November, 27-1.
Mm-hmm.
I just, that's a guy that just has my trust down the stretch. And we talked about over on Locked On Huskies on our show that released this morning. November's going to be really tough because you mentioned USC, you mentioned Oregon State, Utah is also in there, right? Sandwiched in between those two games.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
November
I almost forgot.
Yep. So November is going to be a really tough month for the Huskies. Can they escape it unscathed? Sure, because this team has found a way to win. Despite the flu, despite all these other things that have been going on, they have found ways to win. Are they the best team in the Pac-12? I think until they prove otherwise by losing a game, that they have to be right there.
Yeah, I think that it's pretty easy to look at Oregon over the last couple of weeks since the Washington game and say the Ducks have been more impressive. I think that's objectively true. Still, though, I think there is something mentally to, Oregon still has to get over that hurdle, right? Dan Lanning is 0-2 against Kalen DeBoer in the last couple of seasons. They've both been really close games, and we'll see how they're playing if they do meet again on a neutral field later in the season. But Oregon's played better the last couple of weeks. Washington still got the better of them in a game that Oregon played well for the most part in Seattle. And I think those teams are really evenly matched. And I hope they meet in the Pac-12 championship game, because I think it would be pretty awesome. And I will be there for the Pac-12 title game no matter what. Let's go right into our Pac-12 power rankings after week 9, Roman. I assume our top two are looking the same, which is Washington number 1 and Oregon number 2. Yep. And look, I do have half an inclination, Oregon fan or not, to put the Ducks number 1 with the way they've looked in the last couple of weeks. I still can't get past, when you're talking about power rankings here, I'm looking at what your resume is, what your team potential is, and also, just kind of who I think the best teams in the conference are. That's my assessment criteria here. And until Oregon beats Washington on the field, gets over the hump, wins that close game, I'll keep the Huskies above them. Though here's the way I feel, even more so than we have in the last few weeks, Roman, when we've done this segment on a recurring nature here on a Tuesday show. I've got Washington 1, Oregon 2. They're really, really close. I think it's more 1A, 1B than it is 1 and 2. But the number 3 team is a gap. It's because I don't think it's a huge, massive gap, but it really feels like when Oregon and Washington play at their best, nobody else in the Pac-12 is going to beat them. That's the way it seems to me right now.
No, you're 100% correct, because it is kind of a 1A, 1B thing with Washington and Oregon, right? And I love your point of until Oregon can beat Washington, they really can't be ranked above them. Like that's like if Washington loses a game, that's a different conversation. But that's the reality of the situation, right? I saw that Fox Sports thing that they put on Twitter yesterday of, who's better right now, Washington or Oregon? And I said, well, I had to quote it. I know it was clickbait, and I fell for it anyways. And I said, maybe the team that won when they played. Like that's really the only way to put this. And I had a bunch of Duck fans that I mentioned being like, oh, well, they Oregon won every phase of the game except the final score, which is the one that matters. So, I mean,
results do still matter. I think where Oregon fans are coming from is, if you look at the body of work this year, I mean, we talked going into that Oregon-Washington game, they had very similar schedules in that they were favored in every game. They won every game. They were really, really impressive. Then they played a coin flip game. Washington comes out on top. And then in the 2 games since, Oregon against 2 teams better than what Washington has played have looked better. I still am of the belief that team that Washington is capable of, or that they were early in the season, I think that team is still in there far more than a Washington State, for instance. So we're in agreement. But then the Pac-12 power rankings get kind of tricky. They get kind of tricky because if you're talking about who's the best team in the conference right now, you can go a number of different directions. You can go to a number of different events if you use GameTime, which is the best way to buy tickets. No matter what sort of event you're going to, you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. GameTime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can go see everything that you want to see wherever that is, whether that's any of the 6 Pac-12 games this weekend. GameTime is the ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's Locked On College for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Alrighty then, let's continue with the Pac-12 power rankings here, Roman. So Oregon and Washington, number 2 and number 1 respectively. I wonder why subconsciously I said Oregon first. No idea. Washington 1, Oregon number 2. By the way, before we continue, I had this mailbag question sent in that I just wanted to answer real quick. It says, hey, LOP12, I love how you cite statistics when analyzing college games and teams. What are the best free stats websites that you recommend which are accessible to college football fans? Going to the team website is a great place to go. Everything is very well organized. Stat reference, whether that's college sport reference, NFL, MLB, like they have a bunch of great information if you want to look season by season. ESPN is good, but really I'd say the place to go is just Google like Washington Huskies football, Oregon Ducks football, USC Trojans football. The team websites tend to have really well organized and detailed stats in there. Shout out to the SIDs of the world. They make the world go round in college sports.
I want to add one more to that list too. Okay. CFBstats.com.
Yes.
CFBstats.com is fantastic. Highly recommend. Everything is also very well organized, and they just have a plethora of every different stat that you're looking for. It's there.
Yep. Okay. Good call. So let's keep going here. Washington, Oregon, and then I think there's just got to be like a holding space at number 3. Oregon State and Utah. These are still good teams. I have them at number 3 and number 4 respectively.
So Oregon State and then Utah.
Yeah, I have Oregon State and then Utah. But again, I just feel like any of these sorts of teams can beat in Oregon or Washington. I don't think the gap is that big. I just feel like the highest gear that Oregon and Washington have goes well above what everybody else can do.
I absolutely agree with you there. And I'm in agreement with you there too. I've got Oregon State 3 and then Utah 4. Yeah. And so I'm curious who you have at number 5, because it all kind of leads into that discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you have there? So
I have Arizona at number 5.
Perfect. That's who I also have at number 5.
And that's who should be at number 5.
No, absolutely.
And by the way, there's an argument that they should be higher. I know they just beat Oregon State head to head. I put some weight into that for sure. But when it's a coin flip game, you can work in other factors there. And Arizona is a good team. I don't think at their best they're as good as Oregon State. They were good on Saturday night for sure. But if Oregon State, kicks a field goal instead of trying to run it in with a kicker from the 24-yard line, that game could also be very different. I will not be surprised if by the end of the year, Arizona, who before the season I thought would beat Oregon State at home and would beat Utah at home, will not be surprised if they are power rated for me number 4 in the Pac-12.
So I was about to get really spicy with it when you told me that this is what we were doing today. And I was prepared to put them at number 3. That's how high I was willing to go. But then I said, no, I'm going to be a little bit more reasonable, and I'm going to save my my drastic ranking for a very special team.
Yeah.
But no, it's
okay.
There.
I could
exactly right.
It sounds crazy. It sounds crazy. It feels kind of weird, but at the same time, you go, well, they don't.
It makes sense. You can see it.
Yeah. Well, I worked for Southern Utah University, as a lot of people know, and their head coach, Delane Fitzgerald, who's awesome. I talk to him all the time, of course. And, they've had a lot of close losses over the last few years. And one thing that he mentions repeatedly to me is winning is a skill. Winning is a skill. Knowing as a program, as a team, how to win close games is a skill. So Arizona in close games this year, 1-3. That is why I have them below, because I look at Oregon State and say, they've still got to win over Utah. They've still got to win over UCLA. That's really, really impressive. Had a solid road win against Cal as well mixed in there. Lost close, though it wasn't quite as close as the score indicated, at Washington State when the Cougs were playing better. There's a lot of variation and subjectivity here. I think you can interchange a lot of these teams, but Arizona absolutely deserves to be squarely in tier 2 of the Pac-12 teams right now, because they took USC to triple overtime on the road. They played Washington to a 1-score game, and they beat Oregon State, and they took Mississippi State to overtime on the road.
Exactly. And especially and that was something I remember seeing, I can't remember who put it out there a couple of weeks ago. If Arizona beats that Mississippi State team, they probably go into that matchup with Washington ranked.
They would be inside the top 20 right now. Right now. Yeah, if 100%. Any of those one possession games, 2 of which went into overtime, if any of those games go Arizona's way, and that's part of the reason I have them 5th when they could certainly be higher. Winning is a skill, and it is a reflection of your team at some level. It's why I have Oregon below Washington. Got to be able to win the game at some point in time. Results do matter, though they're not everything. I've got Arizona at 5 because I have been more impressed with their resume so far than USC, who I have at number 6.
So I like where you're going there. The one last thing I wanted to say because I was really, really tempted to put Arizona at 3. So I truly was. I think that the last thing that I want to say on that matter is Oregon State's offense is kind of what gives them the edge, especially over Utah. It's something you and I have talked about on these shows before, right? Where Cam Rising's health was everything.
Yep.
When it came to Utah's offense, and now that he's not coming back, it's just it's tough to see. And you hope for the best and hope to see him next season, but it's also just that's just kind of the biggest thing, right? Because I think both their defenses are really solid, and then Arizona's, especially defensively, is just a bit of a step down from the other two. But their offense, that especially Cowing and to Tyrone McMillan, they can hang with anybody.
The defense is much improved, though.
It's much improved.
Yeah.
But if you said you can have one of these 3 defenses between Oregon State, Utah, and Arizona, no disrespect, Arizona is 3rd on that list.
Correct. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. I think that's a valid way of looking at it there. So, by the way, I liked going into that game, the Wildcats, and I liked Jonah Coleman, the running back. Jonah Coleman is the most underrated running back in the Pac-12. He will continue to get love on this show. He is a big, physical runner who does not get tackled very easily, and he's got a more than solid offensive line to run behind. So let's keep going here. I've got USC. You have USC at 6 behind Arizona?
Nope. I'm sticking with what I said last time on the show.
Okay.
And I'm going to put UCLA at 6 and USC at 7.
Okay. So I have UCLA at 7. Here's why. My concern with the Bruins coming into this year and why I was lower on them than most was the quarterback position. Yep. It's been a revolving door, been a little bit of a mess. Their team outside of him is really good. Whoever he is at the quarterback position right now, it's Ethan Garbers and Colin Schlee and the Wildcat and everything, which is probably the right course of action. If you give me USC and you give me UCLA on the same field right now, it's a close competitive game. UCLA probably runs all over USC. However, the best player on the field is still on the Trojan side of the ball. And I know everyone loves to rip Caleb Williams because he's just a horrible, no good, very bad football player who went for 360 and a couple touchdowns this past week on the road against Cal. I'm not saying Cal is great, but still, he puts up really good numbers week after week for the most part, and everyone's allowed a dud every now and then. That's why I barely lean USC, but that one is almost like Oregon and Washington to me. It's really close because I like UCLA's team more than USC's. I like USC's quarterback. I like USC's quarterback a lot more than UCLA's, whoever it is.
You're absolutely right. And that is the most important position on the field. And Caleb Williams deserves his flowers for everything it is that he's accomplished in his career. But I want to go with the team aspect of this because everyone bagged on Washington for giving up 32 points to Cal when 14 of those came from the true freshmen and the walk-ons. USC's starting defense just gave up 49 points to your Spencer, your California Golden Bears.
Yes, it's true. They are my Bears. They are my Bears, as we all know. Yeah, that was bad. And the reason that I went with on Monday's show, a lean win label for USC is they won the game and they're in survive and advance mode. Everyone's like, oh, their defense is terrible. Like, okay, so I didn't actually get any new information about them. Caleb Williams made a bunch of plays. He also had some boneheaded moments, but made some spectacular ones. They ran the football well enough. Their defense is horrifically bad. And when they play Washington this week, might give up 56 points. I am not joking. That could really happen at the Coliseum. And then I'm like, well, if at this point you control your own destiny to get to the Pac-12 championship game, it's not all bad. Like you won the game against Cal. That's all that essentially matters right now. We know they're not a national championship caliber team, but in theory, they could still win the Pac-12 if they get their offense right and they just go outscore people. Lincoln Riley's done that before. So we have a flip, but it's close on USC and UCLA. We'll get to the bottom 5 and then rank the quarterbacks.
I'm excited for that. That's going to be fun.
It is indeed a fun time. Betting over at FanDuel is a fun time as well. Only if you know what you're doing, though. Only if you bet the Pac-12 Prime Picks this prior week and not the week before that. We don't talk about that one. But 3-2 last week. We're on the come up, baby. Just trying to get the 500 on the year. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. It is indeed that easy. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. They have spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Spencer, I have an over-under question for you.
Hit me with the over-under question.
Do you know what the over-under is on FanDuel for this Saturday's game between Washington and USC?
I don't. I want to guess. Okay.
Please.
I promise you, everybody, I have not looked at it. I know that Washington's favored by 3, and I would hammer the Huskies there. The over under, let's see, 74.5.
Oh, you were so close to 75.5.
Oh, wow. I'm impressed with myself.
Hey, yeah, but hey, hats off to you, man.
Wow.
Like, that was incredible.
75.5. And I guess, boy, that might be my best gambling moment of the entire season right there. Better than any pick I've handed out. 1 point off of an over under. Oof. 75.5. I almost like the over. Stanford just put up 33 on Washington. I'm just saying. Can USC put up 40? Probably. They're capable. Yeah, anyway. Okay. Let's wrap up our power rankings here. So I've got Washington, Oregon, Oregon State, Utah, Arizona, USC, UCLA. Roman's got Washington, Oregon, Oregon State, Utah, Arizona, UCLA, USC. Right behind UCLA, I've got my Cal Golden Bears.
Oh, this is where we differ.
Who do you have it? Who do you have there? Cal just played USC.
Yeah, no, they played. So I have Cal at 9. I'm not super low on Cal.
That is at least one spot too low.
I've got Arizona State at 8 for the way they played over the last couple of weeks.
Okay, so I have Arizona State at, or hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I have Arizona State at 9 and Cal at number 8.
Okay. So we're not too far off here.
Okay.
Yeah, so I flipped them. Go ahead, please.
I think that's fair. Cal did win the head-to-head, and though it was a close game, I felt like Cal was the better team and just, couldn't quite put them away. I thought going into that game, Arizona State would cover and Cal would win. That is what happened there. I think Cal is the better team. I like Cal's offense more. I like Arizona State's defense more. But Cal's offense, as I've said all offseason, has got some really nice pieces. And Arizona State, I don't know what's going on in Washington State. I've got them at number 10, but
yeah, that's where I have them too.
I
one thing I want to say on Cal, I'm sorry.
Okay. Spencer, yeah, go ahead.
But the one thing that I want to say the one thing for me, because I do like Cal's offense, but is the Jaden Ott thing going to keep him out for a while?
Have not seen. Have not seen, and I agree that matters because Isaiah Fonse, the backup who's really good, was carted off, and if that dimension is removed from their offense, I agree with you. They're not as good. Though Fernando Mendoza has been a revelation for them offensively and has been a good player. they do need to run the ball to be at their best. I agree with that. So I don't think that's an unreasonable take. I have Washington State at 10. They were once upon a time as high as 3 on this list because they were playing that well. But man, they got outplayed by Arizona State. I thought they'd win the football game, and they're just trying to find a win. They play Stanford at home this week. Gosh, they better win that game, or things could feel awful in Pullman. Awful.
Yep.
I think we're in agreement there. And then I've got Colorado at 11, Stanford 12.
Yeah, that's where I am too.
Okay. All right. So we flip Cal and Arizona State. We flip USC and UCLA. Otherwise, we agree in the Pac-12 power rankings. How about another rankings list on this Tuesday? This was requested by Timothy, by the way, and I'm all about it. I'm going with the quarterbacks who started this past week in the Pac-12. Okay. Number 1. And this is, who do I think the best quarterbacks are, the best football players are at their position? That
is it this season or just this week? Because I have it written out as this season.
This season, the ebbs and flows and everything. I have Caleb Williams as number 1.
I have Michael Penix at number 1.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm a homer. I get it. As all our glorious YouTube viewers can see the Washington flag behind me. But I think that is Caleb Williams a better NFL prospect? Absolutely. No doubt in my mind. 100% he is. Michael Penix has just played fantastic football this season. He struggled a little bit against not a little bit. He struggled a lot against Arizona State. But just from my knowledge and from everything that the coaching staff has said, if he's healthy this week and is no longer just dying with the flu, hey man, we've all been there. I respect it. And pushing through a couple of football games is not the easiest way to do that, especially the way his offensive line played against Arizona State. Like, there were some things that could have made that game look very, very different. I think that Michael Penix, for everything he's done this year, and I think that he just deserves that spot.
I think that both teams would struggle mightily without their quarterbacks in a significant way. I think over the course of this season, still, I feel like Caleb Williams is carrying USC slightly more than Penix is carrying Washington. I mean, Washington's defense, Washington, and that's why I've got Caleb Williams number 1 here. And you might not like who I have at number 2, but that's kind of my thinking there is, boy, USC's defense has done nothing all season long. It is all Caleb Williams. They ride with him. They have highs and lows. It's just all on Caleb Williams. Washington had a horrible game from Michael Penix, flu-ridden or not, and then they still won the game with a defensive touchdown. Sure. If USC didn't score an offensive touchdown, they'd lose the game by 30 points.
You're absolutely
that's where
right.
I come down there.
I think that it's just really hard to not put the guy who is the Heisman favorite at number 1.
He's now the number 2, technically.
Oh, has it moved? Because I saw
JJ McCarthy's number 1.
Oh, okay, because when I looked at it a couple hours ago, it's
splitting hairs. If Washington wins the Pac-12 and goes to the playoff, Penix is going to New York. No questions asked. So this is based on this season again. I have Bo Nix number 2, and here's my reasoning, Roman. Bo Nix has not played, forget a bad half. He hasn't played a bad quarter of football this year. And Penix, again, had it was one game. He was bad in the first half and then really, really good in the second half against Stanford. And against Arizona State, there was nothing doing. And Bo Nix is not as essential to the offense because they can run the football more consistently and they've got a better defense. That's why I keep Caleb Williams number 1. But Bo Nix is, I believe, still leading the country in completion percentage. He's playing at a ridiculously high level. Everybody, the fans of each team can come in the comment section and argue for their guy in one spot or another. And I think we all understand that. But they're all playing at a high level. But Bo Nix is playing at a ridiculously high level. He's like high 70s completion. He has 1 interception on the season, and it wasn't a costly one. And the offense just keeps humming along. So I have Bo Nix at number 2 and Penix at 3.
I hear you because I have Caleb Williams at 2 and then Bo Nix at 3. And my one knock on Bo, because it is splitting hairs for the most part, right? It's not like, oh, Penix and Caleb Williams are far superior or one is way above the other. But my one thing where I have Bo Nix at number 3 is that he is one of the lowest average depths of target in the nation. And that's a product of the system. There's nothing you can really do about that. But it's just kind of, you can talk about his completion percentage. That's great. I think that just the way that Michael Penix and Caleb Williams are able to push the ball downfield a little bit more. And I'm not saying that Bo Nix can't do that. the way that they're able to do that and just kind of extend the offense a little bit more down the field that way is just kind of what gives me a little, just give me a little bit more reservation to put Bo above either of those two guys.
Yeah, I think that pertains more, just in my view, to the NFL and who's the most appealing prospect. I would have Bo Nix as the number 3, maybe even the number 4 quarterback prospect in the Pac-12. But if you're talking about, playing in the context of the season, that's just how I'd order them. But, everybody can have their own opinion there. Let's go like a little bit more rapid fire, just kind of to end the show going down. And we're, again, looking mostly at, how quarterbacks have performed this season and also what they are at their best. I have Shedeur Sanders, number 4. Get that guy some help. And man, he already does throw for a lot of yards, but holy crap, is he under a lot of pressure.
That poor guy, man.
Yeah.
He's going to get destroyed back there.
Yeah. I think he's someone who could benefit a lot going to the NFL because great release, good mobility, great size, good arm, decision-making. Like, I think he's got a lot of traits. He's been impressive to me. Do you have him at number 4 as well?
I do.
Okay. Number 5. You ready? Noah Fifita.
Yes.
It's Noah
that's
Fifita.
What I had here too. This
guy is playing at such a great level. He's playing at such a high level. He just outplayed DJ Uiagalelei on Saturday night by a lot. He really has throughout the course of the season since he's been the starter. I don't care if Delora comes back healthy. This is Noah Fifita's team, and he is good. Not perfect. That interception he threw against the Beavs, that was horrible. That was a horrible interception. Brutal. But he is doing everything that is asked of him and more. I got him at number 5. I'm so glad we agree because this guy, that should be Arizona's starting quarterback in 2024.
I was ready to come on here and drop that hot take, and then you said, this is perfect. I love this."
Yeah. Okay. Fifita 5. I have DJ Uiagalelei at 6. He has some valleys, but when he peaks, Oregon State 52 points on the road against Cal. Makes some really good throws. Like, he's won a lot of games this year. He's been fine.
No, exactly. And that, I also have him at 6. And this has been his whole career, right? It's when he's on, awesome, great player, a lot of arm talent. But when he's off, which is far too often,
it's way off.
Yes, it's too much to overcome.
Once again, road game completion percentage near 50%. He's got to correct that. He's got to turn in more games closer to the Cal. Doesn't have to be what he did against Cal all the time, but the Washington State, Arizona games, you look at his numbers, you go, not exactly what we were hoping for, but still decent. Right. By the way, speaking of decent, I thought about putting him at number 6 here. Ashton Daniels of Stanford.
Yeah. That's where I was going to go.
We're in lockstep agreement. That guy is making...
We didn't do these before the show either.
No, we did not. That guy is making big-time throws week in and week out now. He is hitting the deep ball. He can throw slants. He can throw post ends. He's pretty mobile.
That's
solid.
Solid. Throughout the Washington Stanford game this weekend, I was like, wait, I thought this guy wasn't that good. Like, I didn't
remember I think it was like the second touchdown that Stanford scored, the 45-yard deep ball into the corner. He's sandwiching the ball in between two Washington defenders outside his receiver's right shoulder on like a 45-yard heave down the field. It's like,
gorgeous throw. I won't get into the offensive PI on that play, but it was a gorgeous throw.
Yeah, no, there was a little bit of a push off. No doubt about it. But yeah, so Ashton Daniels at 7. And then at 8, I've got Fernando Mendoza of Cal.
I went with the because I think that they're a little bit better than they give credit for. I have Mendoza at 9. I have the Ethan Garbers Colin Schlee tandem there.
Why don't you take a guess at who I have right below Fernando Mendoza at Cal, who has been an effective game manager. I call Fernando Mendoza game manager plus.
I respect that.
That's what he is. He is game manager plus. And by the way, he's the first guy I'd give that label to. Ethan Garbers would be the second one. And I've been more impressed with Mendoza than Garbers so far, though Garbers is capable and competent for sure. And then I have Bryson Barnes at 11 and Trenton Bourguet at 12. Look, at Bryson Barnes.
Cam Ward at 10.
Did I skip over? Oh, I did skip over Cam Ward on my list.
Because I think we might be too low on Cam Ward.
I forgot. Apologies. I literally forgot to put Cam Ward's name on my list.
I think I did too, now that I look at it.
Yeah, my gosh. I don't know how we did that. Probably because Washington State is just not playing the way that we expect him to. I would have Cam Ward Oh, no, I just glossed over him. Excuse me. I did have him on my list. I had him right below Shedeur Sanders.
Okay, so here's where we'll differ.
So ahead of Noah Fifita, below Shedeur Sanders. Cam Ward's got NFL talent.
He does.
Yeah.
I'm going to put him below. I like Cam Ward a lot. I think he's a really good NFL prospect. Now that we're going back and having a revisionist history here, I'm going to put him at 6. I'm going to put him behind Noah Fifita.
Okay, I don't hate that. Fifita's team walked in and put up 44 points, and his team scored 6. So I do not hate that at all. Apologies, Coug fans. I'm big fans of yours. That was literally just like I glossed over it on my notes. But I've got Ethan Garbers at 10, Bryson Barnes at 11, and Trenton Bourguet at 12. I think that Mendoza and Garbers are game manager plus, and I think Barnes and Bourguet are game managers. And
I was going to say I was impressed with Bourguet's ability as a game manager, but I don't hate that.
Yeah,
I think that there's an argument to put him above Bryson Barnes too. To be honest with you,
in a league where Trenton Bourguet is your 12th best quarterback, he is also the last guy to beat the Washington Huskies on the football field. Roman Tomashoff, Locked On Huskies, Monday through Friday. Go subscribe if you're listening. Roman, thanks as always, man. A lot of fun.
Spencer, thanks for having me and getting me out on that Trenton Bourguet note. Was just,
Yeah, I got you, man. Anytime. Appreciate you listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.